Today we have a guest on the 40 Days of Reconciliation podcast, Mr. David Libby. Welcome, Mr. Libby.
Well, thank you, Emmanuel. I'm very, very glad to be here.
You wrote the book, A Different World, God's Sovereignty in the Face of Suffering. First of all, thank you for writing that book. You were genuinely informed. That one is very clear. I'm sure you know that learning is essential as personal transformation. In many instances, people often struggle to put what they learn into practice. What is the likely cause of that?
Well, that's a good question. And learning is important. And I think learning leads to transformation, or it should lead to transformation. But why is it so difficult to put into practice what we learn? I know that was as you read in the bio, that was my experience. I think theory is always easier than practice. It's always easier to learn about something than to actually do it. And when we're talking about things like theology, it kind of complicates the matter more because the thing that we're putting into practice is such a high calling, such a difficult thing. There are a lot of things in Scripture that are hard sayings, like Matthew chapter 10, where the Lord told us to expect persecution and to be willing to take up our crosses and follow Him, which means be willing to follow Him to death. And it's easy to learn about these things. It's much harder to live them. But we serve a God who, if we are willing to live them, He will enable us. He will give us the strength that we need.
How relevant is theological studies or philosophy to strengthening personal faith?
Yeah, good. Another excellent question. Thank you. I think that theological studies are necessary for strengthening personal faith because faith is only as valuable as the object in which it is placed, right? We can have faith in all kinds of very wrong things. Everybody has faith. The atheist has faith. So the object of our faith has to be the true and living God, the God who really is. And, faith has to lead to a relationship with Him. We can't have a relationship with somebody we don't know, somebody we know nothing about. I'm not saying everybody has to be a deep scholar by any means, but we all need to know who this God is. We all need to read Scripture. That's what theology is. Theology is a big fancy word for reading the Bible and learning what it teaches about God. So we all need that. We all need, in order to have a relationship with the true God, we need to know who He is as revealed in His Word.
What do you think hinders people from seeing this before going through hardship?
Well, I think probably different in different cases for different people, but I think one thing that would hinder people would be unbelief, not really truly knowing their God and believing in Him. We read about things in the Bible where people were facing difficult trials that seemed utterly impossible, like when Moses and the Israelites in the Exodus were pinned down against the Red Sea with the Egyptian army behind them. Instead of turning to God in faith, they grumbled and complained, "Oh, He led us out here to kill us, and we can't possibly defeat this Egyptian army." But the truth is, God led them there to that place deliberately so that they could see His hand at work in delivering them. We need to know our God, and we need to trust in our God. And that can be difficult, but if we look back at what He's done in the past in our lives and in Scripture, then we can see that He really is a God who is all-powerful and a God who will never leave us nor forsake us, and a God who whose hand is not shortened that He can't save, using the language of Scripture. I think unbelief is probably the biggest hindrance, that people don't really believe the claims of Scripture. They don't believe them practically.